People think breathwork is like meditation. It's not.
You are spent by the end of these breathwork journeys. Don't let the word Bali fool you. It was not sunning myself by the pool. I was screaming. My hips were going crazy and my legs were kind of like just unwinding and just getting all this energy out. They're very clearing. It's like so much therapy all in one go. You're releasing all of these stored energies and emotions that you didn't actually know were sitting in your body. It didn't get me upset to talk about, to think about, to acknowledge, none of it. But when I was in that altered state of consciousness, we're looking at these from different angles, we're having new insights, new perspectives, and we can release it. So it was very empowering going back and processing these memories that I never knew had any weight. Releasing them both at a physical level, an energetic level, an emotional level. I stopped judging me, and I think that was what this training taught me. And it was from all the stories my body's been holding and all those things that made me feel like I was less than. We always are going to be working on ourselves. We're not going to all get to the point of going, oh, yep, I'm done. It's always going to be a continuous journey. And so things like that has shifted my perspective a bit to be much more proud of who I am.
Welcome everyone to the Reconnect Self podcast, the show that helps you rediscover what ultimately brings you joy. I am your host. My name is Scott. I am a filmmaker and I'm here with my wife, Tracey, who is a counsellor. Hello, babe.
Hi.
Now, before we get into the show, we are sponsored by us yet again. Open to other sponsors, but no one's knocking at the door. So we have some retreats coming up this year. We have the individual retreat, which we run 3 times this year. Mm-hmm. First one in May.
Yep, 16th to the 18th of May.
And very briefly, tell us quickly about the retreat. What are we helping people with? Is self-care, getting to know yourself?
We want them to connect back into their body. So really being able to regulate their nervous system, learning different techniques of, being able to do that for themselves. We often get pulled out of our centre really easily, with all the stresses of life. So it's a way to come back to ourselves and to regulate our nervous system, and maybe just to have better love for yourself, better care for yourself, value yourself more.
And you would say it's for people who are just run ragged.
And they're givers. They're givers.
Always doing things for other people, giving all their energy to others, not really looking after themselves.
Prioritising other people over themselves.
Yeah, that's what this retreat is for. So if that sounds like you, check it out on our website, traceyquayle.com. And also the relationship retreat, which is in June. That one's obviously probably a bit more simple to explain. It's for people...
Well, it's people that need to change the patterns that are going on in your relationship. So, we often have lots of problems in there that kind of keep coming up. And it's the way that we're relating to each other. We're not knowing how to resolve conflict. We're not knowing how to communicate effectively. So it's learning all the skills and techniques to have a healthy relationship, not just kind of go through the fights that we have. It's going through the techniques and the dynamics underneath them. And that's where you can create the real lasting change because you're seeing the dynamics and the patterns compared to, just going into the content, which you'll have so many different arguments about different things, but it will come down to certain themes.
Beautiful. And that is in June, and details for both retreats are available at traceyquayle.com. All right, today's episode is all about breathwork, why it's so powerful and how it's changed you after... your recent intensive training in Bali. You got back recently. You were away for how many days?
It was 9 days. Was it 9 days? Yeah, but it was 8 days worth of...
Felt like longer.
I bet it did.
We should start by saying one of the most common arguments we think people have is who does more.
Who does what? Who does more?
Yeah, right? Because everyone feels undervalued.
And overworked.
And when you came home, I felt undervalued because I was holding the fort, and you felt undervalued because you were away on what was possibly the most intensive thing.
Not possibly. It's not possibly about it. It was people were. Don't let the word Bali fool you. Yeah. It was not sunning myself by the pool, having some chill time without the family. It was the hardest I've ever worked. I thought the psychedelic retreat was quite hard, just with the the amount of work that we did and not
Yes.
very many breaks and things. But I think the universe gave me that as a bit of a
Little taster.
Yeah, a little bit of a let me get you used to this, and that's just whammo, smack you into a really intense,
Yes.
longer experience.
But you have come back. I mean, you've been knackered for the last
Exhausted.
2 days.
Oh, I can't even tell you how exhausted I've been.
But at the same time, brimming with ideas of
Oh,
how
yes.
you can implement this. So.
I'm so excited. Like it's bubbling out of me when I have a little bit of energy in between the exhaustion. Yeah, I've come back. I lit up. I knew as soon as I experienced the day of breathwork on the psychedelic retreat that this was going to be my jam. So I knew that.
Yeah. And I've done one, because you were doing breathwork journeys, and in a second I'll get you to explain the difference.
Yes.
I've done one breathwork journey, and I think it was 90 minutes. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Like, it sounds easy. People, and I know we've said this previously, people think breathwork is like meditation.
Or I'm already breathing.
Yeah.
Like they sort of
Yeah.
like mock it a little bit.
It's not. Breathwork is hard work, and doing it for 90 minutes is
Like a workout.
so difficult. And you did 2 or 3 in a day, is that right?
Well, I'll go through a little bit of the program, but we would always do a morning practice. So that might involve a bit more gentle breath work, but not always, because there was ones where they call them Kundalini activations, which is a little bit of a yogic term, but we're trying to get the energy within our body to kind of activate and flow through our body. So the movements for that can be also a little bit intense and get your heart rate up a little bit. So it's not just this gentle, lovely, relaxing kind of breath. We're doing things to our body. We're doing things to our physiology.
Should we start with you taking us through a typical day on the retreat, or should we start with what breathwork is and why it's important?
Probably what breathwork is and why it's important.
All right.
So our breath is absolutely everything, and it gives our body the indication of whether we're safe or unsafe. So when we're breathing from our chest, which a lot of people do, we're breathing very shallow, and we can tend to be quite rapid in our breaths. And what that's doing to the body is sending the signal to the brain that we're actually not okay. We need to be hypervigilant about something, or we're stressed about something, but it's actually just the way that we're bringing the breath, into the body. Now, if we bring it right down to our diaphragm, we're actually taking proper diaphragmatic breaths. And we want to do that because that's going to oxygenate our whole system, but it's also letting our body know that we're safe. Now, when we can actually slow the breath down and have the longer exhales, then we're also telling our body that we're really safe, because there's no way if a big lion was coming towards me that I would be able to be with a longer breath hold. It would be quite short and sharp and rapid and get me into fight and flight. So doing that longer exhale, we release nitric oxide, which is what's produced in our body that opens up our blood vessels. So when we are going into fight and flight, what happens is we kind of have a posture that constricts our blood vessels around our heart. We are sending all that energy and blood to our extremities to get us out of danger. Now we need something that's going to open that back up, and nitric oxide does that. When we do the exhale, we'll release the nitric oxide. But if we hum, which everyone knows why I hum and I bang on about humming, we're going to release 15 times more. Right. So through our breath, we have, so much ability to regulate our system. Now, the other thing that people might not know is we release 70%, which is mind-blowing, of our toxins, of our body's toxins, out of our mouth.
Jeez.
So we want to be breathing properly, and we want to be, releasing all these toxins and things. So breath work, or just breath awareness, can be knowing, how to impact ourselves with our breath, whether that's slowing down and regulating ourselves, whether that's increasing the energy and getting our bodies full of oxygen, ready to go and do an exercise class, or, something that might need energy for that day. Like I often suggest to you to do a breath work, if you're feeling a bit fatigued in the afternoon, rather than doing a meditation or having a nap, I'll say, why don't you do a breath work so that, you get that oxygen, and now you do that really regularly.
Yep. I'm up to sometimes 5 times a week, and actually that'll be a good segue into what the difference is. So I do a 15-minute YouTube breathwork thing that I like, and I find that, especially after lunch, if I'm feeling a bit sluggish, it does have similar effects to having a nap, or I don't drink coffee, but I remember what a coffee does, and it has similar sort of effects.
Because you're oxygenating your system.
Yeah. So that's a little breathwork session, similar to the sort of thing that we do at the beach when we invite people to come along, like a little 15, 20 minute, maybe 30-minute thing.
Yeah.
What's the difference? You were doing journeys.
Yeah. So even one of the ones that we have done on our individual retreat is called a nervous system reset. So you are getting into not only the relaxing type of breath, but you're doing a bit more activated breathing and taking yourself into a bit more of a sympathetic state. You're really ramping up your system before really relaxing it, again. So you're kind of playing with your chemistry there. But they're only sort of short with their 15 minutes. When we're talking about a breathwork journey, you will start off the same way that is also getting you in a really, really relaxed state. But then at some point in the journey, we will go into what we call conscious connected breathing. So at first we're starting off with a very regulated breath, a very balanced breath. So what I mean by that is we might be breathing in for 3 and then breathing out for 3. Or we could be doing a breath intake of 4, but we would be breathing out for say 7, holding for 7 and releasing for 8. So we might be just slowing things down at the very beginning to just really regulate people. But then we're moving into the conscious connected breathing, which essentially means there's no pause at the inhale of the breath or the exhale of the breath. So it's kind of continuous. So it would sound a bit like this.
I remember that's hard to do.
It's very hard to do. Yeah, that's why they say it's breath work, because it really at that point is really hard work.
That's one Wim Hof calls circular breathing.
So same thing. Like he will say, like a wave, inhale, exhale, and he'll say, So similar wording, but it's essentially the no pause at the top of the bottom. There's just a continuous breath going through. What happens is we're playing with the chemistry of our body when we're doing that, with the carbon dioxide and the oxygen levels. And that's what actually takes us into an altered state of consciousness. So that means that we are now thinking differently than what we normally would be able to think. And we're getting insights and experiences that, wouldn't be common.
Yeah.
And so where we might get this through psychedelics, we actually have our own ability to access this state just through our breath, which is pretty mind-blowing. And that's exactly why I wanted to go and study this, because rather than taking substances to get us to this altered state, if we can do that through breath alone,
amazing.
The power we have.
How long does it take, like let's say you're doing a journey, how long does it take to get you into that altered state of consciousness?
Well, you usually have maybe about half an hour worth of leading you in to going into maybe about 25 minutes of going into that connected breath. But people might already by that point start to having release of emotions. I know for me, a lot of my journeys on this particular training were very physical. I was twisting on the mat. I was moving my body in lots of ways. That people were literally saying to me I was a gymnast afterwards, but that's because I was moving so much. It can happen much earlier than the conscious connected breathing. But once you are going into that conscious connected breathing, you might be in there sort of for 10 minutes really, and you could go into lots of different places, mentally, physically, emotionally.
Yeah. Wow. There's so much to cover. Where do we go from here? Like what's the first?
Well, do you want to know why people should do it?
Yes, I do want to know that.
Well, if it was just normal breath sessions, let's call it that you would do and I would do if I go to the beach and I do a breath work after a walk or something, that is just to either get me ramped up, ready for the day and excited for the day and thinking about, my day in a really intentional way, or it could be to regulate my nervous system and just really have me feeling zen and peaceful at whatever time, whether that's the morning or before bed or in the afternoon. But when it's coming to breathwork journeys like what I'm talking about, it essentially is we're clearing out old stuff in our bodies. So we store everything that happens to us in our life in our body. So our body is a record of the past. For all my therapist friends or people that have heard this book, the body keeps a score. That's what that's referring to, that our body knows what we've been through, and our body is what triggers us to stay away from things or be mindful of things, depending on our experiences in the past. So we are only living, people always hear me talk about this, 5, maybe 10%, but really about 5% in our conscious brain. And the rest is all stored in our body, in our patterns, in our stories about ourselves. And we're not aware of what they are, and we're not aware of how they're impacting us. And so going into these altered states of consciousness, whether that's, through psychedelics or through breath work, we're looking at these from different angles, we're having new insights, new perspectives, and we can release it. I was really getting a lot of energy out of my body, again, through that movement, but also big emotional outbursts, big energy releases that I was having. And what was really interesting to me is when I was doing my journeys, some memories would come up that I could remember here just in the brainwave state that I'm in right now, and I wouldn't have guessed that there was any emotion behind it. I would have remembered it and known that, that happened to me, but not feel teary, could talk about it, no problem. But suddenly in a breathwork journey, when that memory comes forward, all of a sudden the energy that wasn't expressed at the time starts getting released.
Yeah.
Do you want me to give an example of that?
I think I know which one it is. And I'm not 100% sure what a trigger warning is, but we are going to talk about some
difficult
topics.
So breathwork can take you to places of trauma and to things that you've experienced, in your childhood or your younger years, and it comes up and it gets released. So for me, I was having things come forward where I felt very disempowered. Okay. So I had some memories come forward where I felt minimized or not given a voice or not having my own voice. And again, things that I remembered but didn't necessarily know they had any emotional weight behind them. So I'll give you an example. Now, Scott was reluctant for me to say this particular one because he doesn't like even the thought of this happening to me. But I want to share it because I am not alone. And for women, we have lots of things that we experience in our life, and we can often be in situations where we're very vulnerable.
Yep.
And so this is one of those. So I had come up in my journey a time when I was probably about 16, and I'd been at a party, and I thought it was cool that one of the guys in my year, his older brother, took a liking to me or responded to my advances. I'm not sure how it played out. But anyway, we ended up making out in the back of his car. Now, that was my level. I was happy to just make out, but he kept trying to push my head down to give him oral sex. And he did that quite a number of times. I would I would allow him to push me down, but then I would bring myself back up and try and just keep kissing him again. But a number of times he pushed my head down. So in my breathwork journey, so much anger came out around that memory and that literal and figurative pushing me down.
Yeah.
And me being
bit of an anger coming up in me right now. Like it's such a you hate
that. You hate that one. But the reason I'm sharing that is because I didn't know that had any emotional weight. Like when I look back at that and think of that little Tracey, I think, that's shit. And, I wish she could have had more of a voice, or I wish she wasn't in that situation. And gosh, I hope that never happens to our girls. But it didn't get me upset to talk about, to think about, to acknowledge, none of it. But when I was in that altered state of consciousness, I was screaming. My body was taking over and just releasing it. We store a lot of trauma in our hips. And so my hips were going crazy and my legs were kind of like just unwinding. Like that was the feeling, that was the sort of awareness I had, that my legs were unwinding, and just getting all this energy out. I had ones come up, of other times in my life where again I felt, quite disempowered. And you are spent by the end of these breathwork journeys. So they're very big. They're very clearing. It's like so much therapy all in one go, because you're releasing all of these stored energies and emotions that you didn't actually know were sitting in your body.
And is this why it's so important, sort of the prep and the follow-up? Because
yes.
Before you went on this course, I was sort of going, you can run a breathwork session, like just, in, out, count to 4, count to 7, whatever it is.
Yes.
Tell me why that is so wrong.
Because there's so much more to it. So first of all, you want to make sure people are appropriate for breath work, because sometimes if people are on too heavy a medication, they might not be suitable for it because they're not really experiencing a range of emotions. So we had amazing facilitators that were taking our training. Shout out to Adam and Neelam. They held space for us beautifully and were so informed. And they were talking about how, nowadays there's lots of, pop-up events where you might have hundreds and hundreds of people in a room kind of going through a journey, but they might not be aware of what's possible. Of what their body might show up for them, what they might bring up for them. So again, the same reason that, I shared about that experience about that teenage incident, they might not know that things that they had a memory of had all that emotion underneath it. And also, what does that mean for them? How are they processing that afterwards? If they're in a group of, 300 people and you've got some facilitators walking around, but they don't know what's going on in your mind and in your body and what just happened for you. So an example of that is, so for me on the, gosh, I don't even want to say retreat. That sounds like I'm having a lovely time. on the training, we were doing, definitely 1 to 2 breathworks a day of this kind of level of intensity. Yep. But on our very final day, like our final full day, I did 3 breathwork journeys. Like that is massive. And 2 of them were that close together that we literally did our 90 minutes. It wasn't active breathing for the whole 90 minutes, but the whole process of opening and closing the space and, giving some feedback and things. It was about 90 minutes. And then it was like, ding, ding, go have a toilet break. We're going again. And mentally and physically, it's like, oh my God, do I even have it in me to go through that? And for perspective, the very first time I did a proper breathwork class, which was again with Neelam and Adam, everyone said to me afterwards, because I went on my own, what did you think? How was it? And I said, it was amazing, but I wouldn't want to do it next week. In fact, I probably would do that next month. And here I was, ding, ding, 5 minutes later, having to do these journeys like that. Like it was insane. So I'll explain what can happen for people. So mentally, your brain is going to want to try and get you out of there because you're used to being locked in your patterns. Your brain is used to being in control. Your mind is used to, trying to make sure it knows what's going on. And we need to get out of our head, get out of that monkey mind and all that chatter that goes on and get into our bodies and do the real work. So people can sometimes feel like, oh, that person's voice is annoying, or I can hear everyone next to me, or God, I'm not at the right spot yet. Everyone else is having releases and I'm not. So our mind will just chatter. It might say, I need to go to the toilet. It'll do anything to get you out of that situation. So that's one of the things mentally that can happen. You might have memories come up that you didn't necessarily remember, or you didn't know the weight behind those memories, which is what I was just describing. Emotionally, we could have a full range of emotions. You could have the anger, the rage, the sorrow, the grief, the tears, all of the range of emotions. But people also can get lovely emotions, like especially towards the end of the breathwork journey, you can feel so self-loving. And again, that's kind of similar to psychedelics, where you feel that connectedness to yourself and you feel very loving of yourself. That's another common experience for people. And then physically, you can do what I do and twist all around the mat. In fact, that's why I was so exhausted from my breathwork journeys. They were crazy movements. And I think I should coin a new type of breathwork called breathacize. Because if I had a heart rate monitor on me, I would love to see the calories burned. But funnily enough, and again, with physically, I'll tell you something in a moment, but physically you could also get what's called tetany, and that's where your hands can kind of go stiff and go claw-like, or you could get that in your jaw or your feet. Now, what that is there's an imbalance of those gases of the carbon dioxide and the oxygen. So someone might not have been breathing in a really even way. They might have been having more emphasis on the exhale compared to the inhale, and it's throwing off those gases. So they can feel really worried that they're locked into this claw-like, tension, and it can hurt. But they do say that, it's completely normal and you'll return to your normal functioning once the breathwork journey's over. So just breathe into it. Or you could actually return to nose breathing and come out of that conscious connected breathing and just let yourself regulate a bit, and then you could come back into it. So there's ways we can manage that for people. We also try and encourage people never to get up during a breathwork journey, because you are in an altered state of consciousness. So you're going to be wobbling on your feet. So it's best to resist those urges. So lots of things, can come up for people, in these journeys, and people can even have loved ones come through. I've heard that so many times now, that they can say, I felt like someone was holding my hand.
Yep.
Or I felt...
That happened to our friend.
It happened to our friend. It's happened to clients of mine. It happened to people on the retreat. It hasn't happened to me personally, but I've heard enough stories now to be like, wow, that's insane. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. Let's finish off the point around people doing pop-up events.
Oh, so they're not
actually finished that.
Sorry,
point.
yes. What's happening is they could have one of these experiences where, one of their traumas comes forward, or something they didn't realize had such weight, for them, and they're just left in it.
Yeah.
And no one's helping them debrief that. No one's helping them process that and integrate.
So our message is absolutely breathwork is amazing and can be very therapeutic, but you have to know what you're getting into, and you have to be with people who know what they're doing and can support you if something comes up for you, which it likely will.
Yeah.
From what my experience, and also, what you've been talking about.
Yeah.
So you need a good ratio of
facilitators
to people who are doing the journey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also those facilitators or, support staff are also watching for your pattern of breath to see if there's any areas in your body where that breath isn't moving through, and they can facilitate during those journeys, doing some body work. So that can be really strange, people can come along and push at certain parts of your body, and that can release energy also. They can also direct you towards certain movements that will release trauma and release energy in the body. So again, you want someone that's really experienced to know what they're doing, not only in guiding that, but also in what might come from those releases. So yes, before doing this training, I probably thought that I could whack on some headphones like I hear on my Breathwork, app, and just kind of do something similar. But you are holding so much in your mind, because you've curated a playlist for you to be able to have your intro, your opening space, for the group. You're giving information about the journey. You're leading them through different types of breath configurations and moving them from one to the next at the appropriate times, all the while watching at what your clients are doing and how they're moving and whether they're having releases already while you're trying to remember all that stuff. You're trying to take them on a bit of a journey with your voice to get them to visualize things. One, to try and get them out of their heads a little bit, but two, it can just increase the intensity of their experience if they're imagining, they're clearing out certain things, and you're really encouraging them for those big releases, because that's where all the energy is stored, and you want them to have those big energetic releases so that you can feel clearer and cleaner afterwards.
Why should people do it? Like, if you've been listening to this episode, you'd be like, that doesn't sound that appealing. Like, what?
Well, because energy does get stored in our body, if we don't release it, it's going to lead to cell dis-ease, and then it's going to lead to cell disease. And that's how diseases are formed, because people aren't clearing out the things that we've gone through and releasing them from our body. So, back in, you think about animals, if they've gone into fight and flight, when they've gotten away from the predator, they don't just come away and just sort of get on with things. They actually shake their bodies.
Yes.
They're shaking that extra adrenaline, cortisol, or the chemicals out of their body to release it from their system before returning to rest and digest. We don't do that in modern times. You have a fright, you have someone piss you off on the freeway, you just get on with it. That energy gets suppressed in the body.
Yeah.
In fact, the other day, an incident happened at Tommy's high school where they watched one of their friends faint right before their eyes. And that was really scary. His eyes rolled back in front, back in his head. And they said he went stiff as a board and then went straight back and smacked his head, which would have given him a concussion. And all of those boys that watched that with the friend that they care about would have gone into fight and flight and freeze. And then people swooped in and they were very much pushed to the side, which is very disempowering for them. And they had some year 12s, which were probably trying to be really helpful, and they were great for the actual kid that was, had fainted. but they got pushed out and told to go back to class. Now, no one's debriefing them about what they've just seen. No one's updating them about their friend that they don't even know what's happening to him. So where does that energy go for those boys? Gets stored in the body.
Yeah.
So it can be as simple as that. Something doesn't even happen to you, but you watched it and you had that energetic release of chemicals and no one's helping you to process them out of your system.
So this is where I'm going to sound like a bit of a kook as well. Not as well. Like just
as well. You say I'm a kook.
but I know that
some would call me that. Yes,
I
sure.
used to be so simplistic in my view of life. Now I'm very open to different ways of thinking, and I by no means think I'm right or wrong. But around disease, right? Like, surely there's a reason we haven't got a cure for a lot of these diseases, and I guess specifically cancers, but like, we've come so far in technology. My belief, and I'm not spruiking it, this is just my belief, is that there should absolutely be reasons why disease is happening that we can't cure, because
you haven't energetically cleared it out.
So that's how I'm definitely on that way of thinking. So even though it might sound scary, the same way as when we did the psychedelics episode, like, you know, taking psilocybin, mind-altering substances could feel extremely nerve-wracking, especially if you have a anxious brain or a paranoid brain, which I can absolutely empathize with. I would say I have both of those things. But the benefits that you're going to get, and even though you said you're exhausted, do you feel better for having done these journeys and for having cleared out?
Yes, what it actually gave to me, and I'll keep going with some of the insights that I got, was when these disempowering moments came up in my life, and in fact I will say this one, towards the end of the week, because you're doing so many journeys and you set intentions of what you want to release and you set intentions of what you want to receive, because once you've cleared something out energetically, we want to put something in that spot that's beneficial. So I was constantly thinking of these different intentions, and I think I ran out of ideas one day and I just said, let's release anything that's pre-memory trauma in my body. And in that particular breathwork journey, I had an image come up for me, which I knew exactly what that meant for me. And I had such intense emotions come up because of that I had no memory of, but my body certainly did remember that. And it was so empowering to get that out of my body, where that's been stored for literally my whole life, because it was pre-memory. And I didn't want to know the detail, like my head didn't need to know the detail of what it actually was. I knew enough information from the image that I got that I could leave it there and just let my body do the rest. And I could release it. And what that also gave me is, throughout these journeys, I had such self-love, because at the end of those breathwork journeys, I was usually hugging myself or had my hand on my heart and my belly and was just really nurturing myself and honouring myself. So I kind of walked away from there connected to my body. My goal was really to not have shame around dancing or singing, or things that kind of over time, when people say, oh, you can't dance, or you're a terrible singer, and all those things that are just stories and they make you behave in a certain way. So I kind of was going back to my younger self and dancing with her and reconnecting back up with her and telling her that she's good enough, and telling her it didn't matter if I didn't look good when I'm doing it. It's not about that. Going back to caveman times, they had practices where if they've gone through something, in their days, in their their existence, they would have drumming around the campfire. They would do dancing and stomping, but all of these physical things that they were doing to energetically release whatever's just happened in their day. So they were clearing as they were going. We are not doing that. We are storing and storing. And if you think about it, if I give you the example of my breath, I go through something, keep going. Where's that energy going? That's literally going in my body. And you watch people hold their breath. They go through something bad. Oh shit, they hold their breath. So our breath has so much to do with what's stored. It gives our body that indication of, oh, that's not safe. So let me just freeze frame and take a snapshot of that, and your body remembers that. So going back in and triggering it and activating it and releasing everything and then getting the insights attached to that. So for me, it was all around me not having my own voice. And actually, one of the insights I really got was because I was doing so many big physical releases, and I really could see that I was different than everybody else in the amount that I was doing. I said to...
You're talking about physical movement.
Yeah, physical, like twisting around the mat, like I said, burning loads of calories and doing crazy stuff. But other people were getting, different experiences. So I said to the facilitators, do you think I should do something different in terms of not let myself move so much? And they said, yeah, I think that your body might be distracting you a little bit. Anyway, I had noticed in my previous breathwork journey that... Oh, by the way, another physical symptom that can come up is people can vomit or purge, which is kind of just like spitting, which blew my mind. I didn't actually know that was a thing until this training. I didn't really remember it
when I do my 15-minute one, when I'm doing the really deep, quicker one, so it's like one in, one out, I just produce a lot of saliva.
Yeah.
And this is not relevant, but it's funny. Since I've got into my mid-40s, I choke on my own spit at least once a day.
Oh, my Lord.
Just from swallowing. And I've asked my friends if that's a thing, and they said yes.
You didn't ever ask me. I've never had that thing.
I didn't bring it up with you because it's disgusting. But anyhow, so it's, I just thought it was a funny insight. But yeah, when you're doing those breaths in and out, I produce a lot of saliva.
Yeah.
So if I was doing that for 90 minutes... I would absolutely need to be spitting that out because it's too much.
And what I didn't realise is that on the day that I did 3 breathwork journeys, in the first one of that day, I realised by the end of it, I probably did want to spit, but I reached to the side of me and I couldn't find any tissues. And so I literally swallowed that back down, which is terrible to do. Remember I said that we release 70% of our toxins through our mouth? So me doing all that hard work of getting that out into my mouth and me swallowing it back down was terrible. So good tip, don't ever swallow that down. So anyway, it made me be aware that, I didn't want to spit that out because I didn't want to make a mess because Neelam had said, just spit it on the wood. And I was like, I couldn't spit it on the wood. Like if I wasn't going to have a tissue, I wasn't going to spit it. And that started giving me the indication of, Tracey doesn't like to make a mess. And so in the next breathwork journey, once I gave myself permission to actually spit something up, more and more and more came. It was I was blocking myself. I wasn't allowing myself to do that. And so again, that was the insight. Tracey, you're blocking it. You're not allowing yourself to let it come up this way. And the energy of what was happening in my body was going in the wrong direction. So it was going all around my hips and my lower body because I wasn't allowing it to move up and be released sort of through my throat and through my, through my mouth. And so my insight was, I've got to speak up more. I've got to stop being so polite and worrying about other people's feelings because that little person inside of me is getting silenced.
Yes.
And she's really important. So I walked away from that training absolutely in love with myself in the way of I've got my own back. I can do anything that I want to do and that I believe in. And I'm not going to worry about opinions. And in fact, one of the insights was stop asking permission.
Yeah.
And I just kept feeling like, I can get really in my head sometimes around the social media that you have me do. And
well, even the way you talk about that you have me do. Like,
yeah.
That's a little insight right there.
Yeah, true. Yeah, because I can still feel like I'm being pushed on people. And then I did have the insight on again, I'm going to change it from retreat to say training, that if my message is pure to what I want to tell people, if they're going to judge me, they're following the wrong person.
Yeah.
I mustn't be resonating for them, so they need to not follow me. And that's on them.
Yep.
That's not on me. And so just little things like that has shifted my perspective a bit to be, much more in my body, much more proud of who I am. So I was dancing that whole retreat. I'll give you a little insight into the length of the days you were saying before about asking a typical day. So we would always start at 7 a.m. and that would be a morning practice of some kind that would go for, I'd say an hour, but Adam can be a chatty Cathy and sometimes we can run over time. And then we would have breakfast until 9:30. So whenever time we finished that, until 9:30, and then we would go into some sort of learning or breathwork journey, whichever one it was. We learned actually some really amazing trauma release exercises. I was just talking about them with Greg on our previous episode. And that was amazing to know that I could do these certain maneuvers with people away from the breath. Certainly you can do it with breathwork as well, but even without breathwork, that were very effective with releasing energy from the body. And when I did that myself, seeing is believing. My legs were going crazy. My inner thighs could not stop shaking. In fact, I was joking with them saying, is this going to be like some sort of calorie burn for my problem area? Because they were just like on a vibration machine. It was crazy. That was my own energy coming from me. So we'd do some practices like that. And then we would have lunch. I think we had that at 1:00. And we would come back at 2:30. We never, ever really got a full break for that hour and a half. That would kind of always dwindle into maybe an hour. Maybe once we got the full break, but mainly it wasn't. And then we would literally have sessions from the time that we came back at 2:30 until 7:00 at night, if not 7:30. Then we would have dinner, and then we would come back for 8:00. And one time we set intentions, but most of the time what they got us doing was karaoke, because they wanted us to get really comfortable on the microphones, because with breathwork facilitation, you're using headphones and you're talking through a microphone so everyone can hear you over the music. And even with the podcast, hearing your own voice back can sometimes be a little unnerving. So, you do want to get used to your own voice and how you sound and how you come across, and so it becomes a bit more second nature. Yeah. So, doing the karaoke, as much as that seemed very lighthearted and silly, it actually gave us microphone confidence. And if you're ever choosing songs and trying to sing that, you'll realise how much you use your breath. If you're not breathing correctly, you won't hold a note, you won't be able to carry the tune. So it's all breath awareness also.
Yeah, I have to admit, you told me you were doing karaoke. That was the first night you said you were about to do it, or you had done it, and
you couldn't picture it, could you?
For whatever reason, could not picture you doing karaoke. I'd never seen you do it. Mm-hmm. It seemed totally foreign to me that it was something you would ever do.
Yeah.
It was only after you sent a video or you posted a video on Facebook or something that I was like, oh, wow, yeah, okay, That's impressive.
Yeah.
Very much against your norms.
Yes. And the funny thing is, because of the heaviness of our days, as much as initially when they told us it was going to be karaoke, and I thought, oh, Lord, that didn't appeal to me at all, it was a welcome relief. Like, it was so heavy, the stuff we were doing, that to be silly and to dance and sing, and the people that I did this training with were incredible, and lots of them were little performers, so their facial expressions would make me laugh. And actually the energy that I got from watching it and singing along with the songs and kind of dancing along with the songs just on my spot on the floor, by the time it was coming around to me, I felt the energy moving in me. And so again, I feel like there's something in try different experiences and get energy moving and flowing differently.
And I saw a different you, because I also saw a video where someone else was singing, but you were just kind of
dancing in the background.
Which is so unlike you.
Yeah, my goal was really to get back in my body. Like, I was determined to stop being awkward about my movements, and just, if I felt it, to just do it. And I think that we get in our heads about, how do I look and what is this like? And, and then you stop doing it. And so then you are never doing something if you're feeling like you're being judged. So I stopped judging me was the first step.
That's huge.
And I think that was what this training taught me, is stop judging me. Where are these stories coming from? Where are these old scripts from? And it was from all the stories my body's been holding and all those things that made me feel like I was less than. So it was very empowering going back and processing these memories that I never knew had any weight behind them, and releasing them both at a physical level, an energetic level, an emotional level, having different insights around it, and challenging some of those views that I previously, might have felt about myself. I was able to let them all go. And look, that's obviously because of the intensity of this training. I think even if people come and see me, once I'm fully qualified, it's not going to be one and done. You need to do, it's like an onion. You're peeling away the layers and the layers and the layers. And I think that's why I was able to get to those deep-rooted pre-memory, traumas in my body and release them, because I'd done so much of the other work also. And look, it's a continuous. We always are going to be working on ourselves. We're not going to all get to the point of going, oh, yep, I'm done. It's always going to be a continuous journey. And so for me, I've got to finish, my personal journeys as part of my training, as well as facilitate videoed, sessions. So I'll be continuing to grow, even from seeing what's possible for my clients.
Does that mean I'll be called into action again?
If you want to. I've actually had so many people volunteer, including Greg, who was just...
Oh, no, I'm talking about actually filming it.
Oh, yes. You'll have to have your technical skills called into action.
That was a callback to the episode about the psychedelic training, where I had to...
Oh, the 2-camera setup. You're going to edit my whole...
And then we had to do about 3 20-minute takes. Yes. Well, my other question, just briefly, is now that you have had all of that transformation, how do you feel about the social media reels? Like if I was to say to you, let's go film some stuff.
I think it's got to just always be that if the messages land for me of what you're wanting me to say, or what you're taking that you hear me say and you're crafting it into something, it's really got to resonate for me.
Yeah.
I don't want to ever put my name behind something.
But I'm thinking more about putting yourself out there.
I have been putting myself out there.
Reluctantly.
Yeah, and maybe that is shifting a bit because, like I said, my insight in the journey was people don't have to follow me.
Yeah.
People don't have to listen to me. If they don't like our podcast, don't listen.
Yeah.
If you don't like the reels that, because even, to be honest, I think one of my friends said something about, oh, yeah, you're really going hard with the social media at the moment. And I think one of them even said, I can't remember if they used the word annoying, but there was something in there that they said that made me go, oh. And then on my journey, I was like, don't follow me.
Yeah.
Like,
You're not
especially
putting on your personal page.
Yes, I'm not. And so especially friends, they might, think they're being sweet following me on social media. But if that's not resonating for you, I'd rather you just follow my personal page where I'm not putting my work stuff. It's more just pictures of the kids and, whatever experiences I've done. But they shouldn't feel obligated to listen and watch me if that's not resonating, because that's where I am getting that sense of, God, she's on it again, or she's another reel for today, which isn't my doing, everyone. That's the marketing husband. But yes, I'm going to stand behind it and be more
proud of what we're putting out on social media.
And that's the insights that I'm trying to say, that, I want people to have the knowledge that I have without coming and paying for it in a session. Yeah. They can just get little bite-sized bits that, they'll click with or they won't. But
you're sharing pearls of wisdom, and, if someone finds that annoying, okay.
Don't follow. And we're not getting paid for this. This is like from the goodness of our heart, taking out the time to do that, to want people to feel better, to want them to love themselves and to regulate themselves. Like, that's my passion. Yeah. And we're not got sponsors sponsoring this. This is just
a little peek behind the curtain, and I can edit this out if I choose to later, is we're putting our heart and soul into this to ultimately try and craft a living to be able to help people. Yeah. Not a luxury living, just craft a living.
And this is what we do.
Our purpose is helping people.
Yeah.
Like, how amazing would that be? Mm-hmm. But we're putting in some hard yards.
Yeah.
Some unpaid hard yards to be able to do that.
Like what you did with your film, where that wasn't paid.
Yep.
That was you investing your own money. It's the same way that I've spent, close to $20,000 in the last... Sorry about that. Sorry, kids. The holiday fund is running low. But that's because I believe in this stuff so much. Yep. I'm believing we've got to tap into that subconscious mind. I've been working for 20 years with the conscious mind, and it's keeping you locked in patterns. I've got to have people go to those deeper layers where those stories and the traumas and the patterns are all stuck. And going into those altered states of consciousness, which originally I thought needed to be psychedelics, and now obviously I've realised breathwork can do the same. Yeah. That's my passion. Like, I want to be able to do more retreats. I've already talked about, doing a retreat in Bali next year with one of the girls that I met on my training. Yep. And just dreaming it. Like, it just gives me so much energy to dream the life that we can see transformation for people coming on these retreats. Like, even, honestly, 2 days in the ones in Chittering, people are so comfortable with each other. They're chatting around and laughing around the dinner table. They're continuing these practices into their lives, which is obviously my dream. That's the whole reason why I wanted to start them.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because there's definitely different levels of breath work. So, the retreat training that you were on in Bali is very intensive.
Very.
There's other levels. So, I did a 90-minute one in Joondalup,
Yeah.
Just around the corner. And that was still pretty powerful.
And she followed up with you too.
Yep.
You did that with Neelam.
Yep.
And that's also why I chose Neelam and Adam to do the training with, because theirs is a trauma-informed breath work. So
Yep.
they're knowing what's possible, what can be triggered,
Yep.
and also taking that time and that respect to check in with everybody to make sure that they're going okay, to see
Yep.
if they need any integration or processing after the journeys. They're not just going, oh, thanks for your money and off you go.
Yeah. But then there's another stage below that, which is, I guess, what we have done on previous retreats, where we're really just introducing the participants
Yes, to their breath.
to breath work. And I was blown away, pardon the pun, of how much everyone resonated with that.
Yeah.
Like, I would say the two things that people took away from the retreats that we've run so far is the cold immersion.
Yeah, which is crazy, right? They
Everyone.
all liked that one.
And I'm not sure I mentioned, but I bought an ice bath. Have I mentioned this already?
I can't remember.
I bought an ice bath, and I'll come back to the breathwork thing. It's been amazing. I love it. I do it 3 or 4 times a week. But for any, particularly dads out there, my son, who is
Turning 16.
He's turning 16. He loves it as well.
He started it. He was one that pushed for it.
Yeah, and his best mate loves it too. And so what I found is I'm now getting 3 or 4 times a week, 15 minutes, because we spend 5 minutes in the bath each and the other 2 people are watching.
Mm-hmm.
I get 15 minutes of quality time with those boys a few times a week.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing. And it's the camaraderie of doing something difficult.
Yes, and patting each other on the back and encouraging
Yes.
each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want to get in. You never want to get in. But you've got 2 people there supporting you. And then that sense of accomplishment when you've done it is amazing. So,
And because, again, with breathwork, it's the same in the sense of you're pushing yourself and you're working hard. You're not just sitting in your comfort zones. You're actively dysregulating your system and then calming it back down to show yourself that you don't need to be reactive every time you're pulled out of your center.
Yeah.
You actually can control your breath.
Yeah. The breathing part of an ice bath is actually pretty important. But yeah, to any dads who are listening, if you have a teenage son, get an ice bath.
Yeah.
I could not recommend it more.
Yeah. So it's really introducing people to their breath and the power of their breath. Even, if you're in an argument with somebody, just close your mouth. Nose breathe. Like, that's going to calm you down right there. But because you're worked up, you're probably going to want to bring lots of oxygen in through the mouth, which is putting you in fight and flight, which is having your chest breathe. So if you even just straight away closed your mouth, and the other thing about the toxins, if that person is having a go at you, it's all coming out their mouth. Don't take that in. Close your mouth. Don't take in their toxins and don't take in the energy behind that. But just you can control your breath and you can control, your emotions and your energies, and you can stay regulated.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I finished my thought because I went on my tangent because I was saying the things about the retreat is, the cold immersion.
And the
people
breath work.
fall in love with, and the breath work. And so the breath work we did on the retreat was 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe the longest might have been 40 minutes. I'm not sure.
No, I think even just half an hour was the
I would have
most.
said half an hour.
Yeah.
And it was something that I would say 90%.
Only one person didn't do it on one of the retreats, and that's it.
But I was going to say after the retreat.
Oh, right.
So taking it into their life after the retreat.
And that client that didn't do it on the retreat, she has done breathwork away from it. We just did different types of breathwork for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's different levels, and then you can even go to the thing that I do, a 15-minute lunch break. So it's there's lots of different levels that you can go to, all the way up to what Tracey will be running, I guess, with me
Soon.
helping.
Yes, very soon.
Soon
And
enough.
just on that, I've talked about Othership before. They actually are a sponsor, and we're going to give away 2 6-month memberships, actually. We're going to get people maybe to share information around our retreats, and people can go into the draw, and we're going to then give those away.
Okay.
That'll encourage people to do, some different types of journeys, because on the Othership app, you've got everything from literally like 2-minute breath, exercises you can do right through to hour-long journeys, where that probably would take you a bit more closer to what we're talking about. But I would still say they're not as intense as what I've done in those classes.
Yeah. So are we saying that now, or that's something we'll do in the future?
No, we can start doing that.
Okay, but I can't remember the logistics. Let's do it in the future. We'll do it when we are going to launch an event. I think that would be better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? All right. Anything else you want to cover off before we wrap up?
Well, just that our breath is definitely a way to regulate ourselves. You could enter at any point. You can just make sure that exhale is longer than the inhale to really down regulate and calm yourself down. Add the hum, to release more of that nitric oxide. But by doing this regularly throughout your day, you'll be retraining yourself how to breathe. So for me, when I first started breathwork years and years ago now, 2-3 years ago now, I was a chest breather, and now I know I breathe properly. And you'll find that if you start doing this regularly, it'll change the way you breathe. All of a sudden, I'll catch myself and I'll do a big deep breath, and I'm like, my body was regulating itself. So you move more into that automatic process. But initially, it might take, just reminding yourself, like having certain places where you might go, right, I'm always going to do that proper breath hold or proper breath breathing in the car or while I'm waiting in line, or just have something to just anchor, that practice to.
Yeah, beautiful. So if you do want to download the Othership Breathwork app, I'm pretty sure the code word is Tracey, and that's how you get the discount applied. And then at some point, we'll do some giveaways of some 6-month things. But straight away, if you do want to try it, just put the code Tracey.
They also have loads of free stuff on their website that you would be able to just access just by having their app, and they also have loads of free stuff on YouTube as well. But I highly recommend them.
Yeah, the YouTube channel is fantastic. Beautiful. All right. Good job, babe.
Thanks. Good job to you. Yeah.
Okay. Join the mailing list at traceyquayle.com. We send a fortnightly newsletter. We'd love to have you join us. Keep a lookout because that's also where we put the beach events. So if we're going to do a little breathwork session at the beach, that goes out in the newsletter. So it's a great way to stay informed about that. Plus, obviously, all the amazing knowledge that we share in that newsletter. And obviously, we'll post on social media when we're doing those events as well. So if you're not already following Tracey, you can do that on pretty much any of the social medias other than Twitter. I even put us on Blue Sky the other day.
I don't even know what Blue Sky is.
It's like the new version of Twitter.
Oh, my gosh.
It's a friendlier version of Twitter. Mm-hmm. We have 1 follower.
Well, good on them because I didn't even know about it.
It's at traceyquayle.therapy. Beautiful. And subscribe, all that other stuff. And appreciate all the feedback and comments we've been getting. It means a lot.
It does mean a lot. So thank you.
Beautiful. All right. Catch you later.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.